Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Sorry to startle you. I saw your cat this morning on the way to the Grolier. Really sweet cat. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Grolier Poetry Bookshop. We are delighted to host Rosanna Warren this evening and welcome her back to the shop. We are sad Richard Fein will not join us this evening as originally planned. We send him our love and admiration. We will reschedule his reading for a later date, so stay tuned. And without further ado, please give a warm welcome to George Kalogeris to introduce Rosanna Warren. Welcome, George.
It's a great honor to introduce my dear and longtime friend, Rosanna. And I know she's a dear friend to so many in this room and watching at home. Can you hear me okay back there?
Great.
Let darkness keep her raven gloss, sang Tennyson. And Rosanna Warren's remarkable recent poem about a flock of coots has heard the cry. Listen to how hauntingly and hoveringly the lines tighten their Dantesque rings as the water ripples out across the chilly surface of growing panic and acute apperception. Quote, we walked fast. Night was spreading its cloak. The western skyline sparkled its broken glass, and the birds in their tuxedos tightened their rings so the water rippled glossily out around them, catching glints and wouldn't freeze. This is a poem that has enough subtlety and dexterity to gloss the perilous complexities and complicities of our darkness-encircled times. It keeps those crackling coots resolutely in view and ends with the purest form of augury, the logistics of necessity. Quote, for now, they keep swimming in circles. That's one way to show you belong. A hard, featherless shield covers their foreheads, connects their eyes with a scarlet dot. If you have one idea, guard it. Only the merciless live. Rosanna Warren's latest book is Hindsight. On page after page, it tells us what we know about who we are and the nation we are living in. And her poems in hindsight have been giving us this insight for 40 plus years. And like the pre-Socratic poet philosophers she knows so well, her poems are in tune with natural law. And what she learns from those sublimely circling coots is a lesson in cruelty. Quote, only the merciless live. The birds know this because they must force their fledglings out of the nest. And the poem tells us this, tells us that our human families too can make for cruelty, however inadvertent or well-meaning. It's just the way things are, alas. And the best poets acknowledge this. They know, like Tennyson knows, to let the darkness keep its raven gloss. It's the helpless music of mercilessness. And it's the mercilessness of intense self-scrutiny that can make for poems of profound pity. Rosanna Warren.
It's a very great honor to be introduced by such a acute and passionate reader and wonderful poet as George. Thank you, George. And thank you to James and to the Grolier. This is a hallowed place, and it's full of living ghosts. They still alive because they're in the words are here in this wonderful space. And thank you all for being here. All right. Let's see. I will not read the poems I read recently at Boston University, so I was very careful to make a list. Am I audible?
Yes.
Good. A new year. Was it myself I left behind? Or was the country letting go of itself at each clackety-clack as the train rattled northward into dusk? Girders flashed by, the ghosts of factories. Then frozen fields, their stubble narrowly laid out in an ancient, foreign, indecipherable script. New solitudes flared on the smutty pane, as if I were aging faster than the engine's hurtle, while the Hudson shoved its massive, wrinkled drowse south, dreaming at its own pace, the drowned river, carrying thousands of years of sediment through torn uterus of rock. Angry signs slashed the shadows. Wrecked cars stacked in yards, tilting fences, sheds pledged revenge. Then a whoosh of snow tattered the trees, and night swallowed us whole. Till dawn, jerking me from my berth, broke over Indiana's frostbitten furrows, a country graveyard slotted among farms. That's obviously a train poem from the 10 years when I took the overnight train quite a lot between Chicago and New York. Let's see. And during not all of these poems, but quite a few of them came out of the COVID years when my beloved and I took refuge in his dingy, decrepit cabin in the Catskill Mountains. And this is one of the Catskill poems. The word droops is not the verb D-R-O-O-P-S, but it's the red berry droop, D-R-U-P. Gall. Catbirds clawing at the ruby droops of viburnum and bouncing the boughs as the great heat squats over us, and crickets sandpaper sunlight in the bristling meadow. We are not lost. We're just quiet. If we don't speak, it's not that we have nothing to say, but that the owl has said it for us in his raspy whistle, perched 20 feet away on a log fallen over the brook, professorial, examining the trickle amid stones. Then suddenly he drops and seizes what? A salamander in his beak and gulps it down, a smacking, cracking sound, after which he fastidiously wipes his mouth on the trunk. Still more ingenious, the wasp who drills the oak leaf to lay her eggs, injecting poisons that swell the leaf into a gall, a globed papyrus palazzo, in which the commandeered tree generates a cafeteria so the larvae can feed until, with sprouted wings and feet, lo, they chew their way out and take flight. They leave this tea-colored paper lantern ball Pliny the Elder instructed us to crush and boil with iron sulfate to make the oak gall ink Europeans wrote with for almost 2,000 years. We are not lost. We have been writing out of our silence, our bile, our chafing, galled. The larvae were hungry, so was the owl, and we from disease made a codex of hungers and shaped the letters precisely so they would last. are a lot of animals in these poems because in our cabin, which is very permeable to animal life, including snakes, which I'm very afraid of. Here's one of the snake poems. Small dead snake. As when I approached what I feared and didn't want to see, the small rat snake curled where it died, struggling in the glue trap set for mice, and I cried out and twisted my hands, but returned to take up the trap with gloved fingers, tipped it into a plastic bag and carried it to the woods on a shovel, and dug a hole in dense root-woven earth, buried it, then looked up where tall leafy branches of beech and oak carded strands of cloud. So I tried to ease with both hands, gently, out of my chest, my fears for you, my stories about what I feared for you, and tried to lift the stories free, to place them out of sight, beyond the grasp of my belief, beyond horror, but not beyond knowing what traps I had set for you, for me. And we don't use glue traps anymore. They're too cruel and horrible. That was a bad experiment. Let's see what are we doing. And here's the title poem of the book. Let me see, what am I doing? Yeah, no, I wanted to see the, all right, I've gone on the wrong list. On the road, all right. On the road. What would you do if, like Don Quixote, you met death, an emperor, a demon, and a queen traveling in a cart along a country road? It's not every day you encounter the elementals. Never mind that their faces are pasty with makeup, their costumes frayed, that they're a troupe of actors on their way to the next show at a country fair. Like the night of the sorrowful face, would you see through the disguises into the heart of things? Beauty makes the heart skip. Power compels obeisance, but death is the real impresario. Remember holding his hand all night, feeling it stiffen and grow cold in your warm palm, until dawn filtered into the room, and you found yourself alone. When Don Quixote challenged the actors, they leapt from the cart, lined up, and prepared to stone him. I realize these are not very pleasant poems. And continuing the theme of not very pleasant, here's a poem inspired by a song from the Rolling Stones, Dead Flowers. Dead flowers. If you hurt yourself before someone else hurts you, is that homeopathic? Watch me prick poison into my skin, sign my name in pain. Watch me miss the appointment, cancel the call. Watch me gulp smoke and receive a certificate of enlightenment between the smeared egg yolk horizon to the west and the bone-white eastern sky. The emperor appoints me to the poetry bureau, and I declare myself queen of the underground. On the back road, the turkey vulture plucked the guts from the squashed squirrel, then flapped up to the dead branch of the shagbark hickory to examine us, examining the carcass. O sacerdotal bird, with your crimson scalp and glossy vestments, teach us to translate the spasm, the cry, the disintegrating flesh, the regret. What can be made of all this grief? Over the butter yellow, humming, feather-grassed midday meadow, skim the shadows of vultures, ghostly, 6-foot wingspan, the swiftest signature, turning death into speed. I guess I realized after I wrote that poem that that's what I want my poems to do, is to turn death into speed. Paste. I'm very sorry that Richard Fein isn't feeling well and couldn't be here. I was very much looking forward to reading with him. And he asked me to read this poem, Number Theory, which is another snake poem, another cabin in the woods poem, and involves my beloved, who's a mathematician. Number Theory. The 4.5-foot black-backed rat snake swayed up and across the kitchen screen door, seeking a way in. Encountering, instead, our eyes, it slowly, deliberately withdrew to slide across the stone porch, over the wall, and along the foundation, inspecting every crevice, feeling, nosing, listening its way toward a solution, which it found around the corner, up the back flagstone steps, where it squeezed its impossible length and girth, inch by patterned inch, into the crack beneath the topmost slate. So we know we're living with a patient companion like you, inquisitive. You sit taut in your chair, whispering as you probe the gaps between prime numbers, until infinity. It's pattern you seek, the opening through which your thought will glide suddenly into a lit space and be at home in a shaky house where wasps gnaw the walls. I've had mathematicians tell me that it is a shaky house. That conjecture upon conjecture upon conjecture doesn't necessarily mean you have a proof. So that news to me. Let's see, how are we doing? Burning the bed. Carefully, you balanced the old mattress against the box spring to create a teepee on that frozen December patch behind the house. Carefully, you stacked cardboard in the hollow and touched the match to corners till flame crawled along the edges in a rosy smudge before shooting 25 feet into darkening air. Fire gilded each looming, shadowed tree, gilded our faces as we stood with shovel and broom to smack down sparks. So much love going up in smoke. It stung our eyes, our lungs. Pagodas, terraces, domes, boudoirs flared, shivered, and crumpled. As the light caved in, privacies curled to ash wisp, towers toppled. Where once we'd warmed each limb, fired each nerve, ignited each surprise. And now at dusk, our faces reddened in heat, so artfully lit, we needed all that past, I thought, to face the night. Let's see. And still in this woodland retreat. This poem is called Offices, by which I mean the in various Christian traditions, the Roman Catholic, the Orthodox, and Protestant, some sects of Protestants, the prayers at different hours of the day, including nones and matins, and for this poem, Compline in the evening is especially important. It's quite a heretical poem. Offices. In our monastery, crickets rattle castanets down the long avenues of day and under the arches of night. In our monastery, squads of dragonflies patrol the meadow, unzipping lines of sight, while ferns crinkle into bronze and monardas quail. Queen Anne's lace frays the surplus of tall grass, and before nones, the hawk dives into the mountain laurel but swerves up with angry, empty talons. A flash of white belly feathers and ankle tufts. In our monastery, before the storm, maples and white pines thrash with dry heaves, and thunder rackets around the cloistered horizon as if an enraged dog had seized the sky in his teeth and were shaking it back and forth until the stuffing falls out. But in the long drought days, silences steepen into abandoned quarries and old wells. The gaps between your prime numbers pulse like the space between stars. We live close to the bone. Your fingers on my spine, primal shudder of an ancient code. When I rise in the night and feel my way back to bed in the dark, one hand on the door, one fumbling along the wall, it's my mother's ghost who touches me. Do I understand now how she felt in her cavern of ruined sight? Keep watch, dear Lord, with those who work or watch or weep this night. Hide us under the shadow of your wings. How slowly we learn, Compline in the watches of the night. Let's see. Well, part of the, I'm just going to take a swig of this nice fizzy water. I'm sure we all remember our experiences of the thick of the COVID, especially before we had vaccines. The terror, the difficulty, the corpses piling up in refrigerator trucks. And in those first few months of disorientation and fear and panic, which was both political and medical, I couldn't write. I just couldn't put pen to I just couldn't, nothing, the language seemed shattered. And I turned to Thucydides, remembering, I hadn't read Thucydides since I was a teenager, but I remembered the plague in Athens, and I remembered especially his account of how language was deformed in Athens by the experience of the plague and the war together. So I after reading Thucydides, I broke up some of his sentences and was able to start writing again. The title, so there are broken sentences in this poem, and some of them are out of a translation of Thucydides, and they're meant to be broken. They set about wasting the land. When the plague first broke out among the Athenians, when the plague out of Ethiopia spread into Egypt and Libya, and among the Persians, violent fever, bloody throats and tongues, vomit, blisters, foul breath, genitals, fingers, toes broke off. When the plague, we saw the moon rise. It floated over heaped, unburied corpses, Birds and dogs that ate them died. The moon rose over broken laws of God and man, smashed oracles, frantic mortal orgies. We saw, we heard, words turned inside out, families broke, parties passionate for power crashed. No words were binding, no oaths reconciled. When the plague broke us, we broke each other. Yeah. Let's see. And here is also where the nature was not exactly a refuge from what was going on politically or medically. It's all connected, obviously. Boletus. Crickets are stitching the afternoon together. What the squalling catbird rends, crickets relentlessly repair. The maple shivers, sends yellowed messages sailing down. Too much has ripped. Half the main branch cracked off and hangs teetering across lower boughs, leaving on the trunk a blonde wound. We cross the brook on stepping stones and climb west up the mountain flank through laurel thickets, along the scooped out valley of beeches, up the stream bed to sit on a fallen tree. But there's no rest. We carry with us what we left below, a country clawing its very idea to shreds. The scarlet boletus mushroom prongs from decaying wood. In its bishop's amaranth skull cap, it stands its ground. One kind will nourish, the other sickens, but not like the white amanita, bringing on liver failure, seizures, death. Let's see. I'm trying to change the tone a little bit here. I'm not overstepping my welcome here. I don't know if you made, in your childhood, papier-mâché things. I did, and I like to do it with my children and with my grandchildren now. So here's a papier-mâché poem. We're ripping up the newspaper and making a goo out of flour and water and glue, and then you can put it around a balloon and shape a mask or a piñata or whatever you want. Papier-mâché. He's ripping up a war. The strips of the New York Times slide between his fingers into the bowl of flour and glue chowder, then splotch around the balloon where he massages tanks, missiles, hollow-eyed, helmeted men, and blasted apartments over the swollen skull of a future pumpkin mask, but pauses before tearing the page of young recruits. Superhero gear and invincible stances, just like his comics. He's 5 years old. Glue soup spatters his hair, his pants. He'll make something whole of all this havoc, the scariest pumpkin we'll ever see. No bombs fall here. We're free to shred whole countries on the kitchen floor. And while we're at it, why not family feuds, our own mildewed archive of injury and revenge? What masks will compose from these tatters, this goop? And when they've dried and we've cut holes for eyes and painted the crackled frame, with what new lines of sight we'll squint at that compulsive brother, Cain, who acts it out again. I like rhyme occasionally. if I can make things sound a little dangerous. Let's see. This is a midrash poem with quotes from a famous midrash, which is responding to this line in Genesis 18, "Shall not the judge of all the earth do justice?" Sunfish midrash. Shall not the judge of all the earth do justice? First the spade slicing fat earth, the satisfying heave of soil onto grass. I poked with my fingers to pull naked worms. At 7, I learned to torture as I pronged the fish hook into spasming flesh and dropped it in the stream and learned to kill. If you desire the world to endure, there can be no absolute justice. Not when I yanked the sunfish through bright air, hacked off its head with a not quite sharp enough knife, slit open the narrow belly, ripped out its guts. All this I learned. If you desire, blood on my fingers, I wiped the blade on the grass, and how the body sizzled in the pan, my pride and hunger sizzled as I ate. Absolute justice the world cannot endure. Flying white, a classic Chinese calligraphic brushstroke, ghost of a figure not laden with ink. I still eat fish. I observe the hibiscus, its pleated white paper satellite dish of bloom, receiving whispered messages from some heavenly realm where letters aren't shaped in blood. I'll read one more from this book and then just a few new ones. This is the last poem in the book. Equinox. The dark-bellied cloud malingers, then lifts slowly above the crowns of the white pines, dragging its skeins through their plumes. The late afternoon lightens in scraps of blue, and treetops waver, unlike the ledger of my wrongs and my expert accounting of others' misdeeds, which is called plot. 3 deer wander into the meadow with nothing on their minds except the slim green weeds just poking through winter's straw. And in the shiftless light, I see again that young man stripped to his pale waist last November in the city, who glided out of the shadows at the corner of the hotel and the parking lot on our nightly walk. A wraith. Were we the strangers he sought? He stood watching us pass with his spindly arms, narrow chest, not shivering in the almost winter dark. In our being, God is torn, said Simone Weil. We walked away, not in his world. So I'll just read a few of these new ones that have been appearing here and there, including Coots, which George so beautifully meditated on. Let's see. Coots. Were they coots? Those dark birds with flashy white bills, swimming together in circles on winter waves, jagged surface of the city reservoir. It would snow soon. We walked fast. Night was spreading its cloak. The western skyline sparkled its broken glass, and the birds in their tuxedos tightened their rings so the water rippled glossily out around them, catching glints and wouldn't freeze. A miracle how a family survives. Come spring, coots lay too many eggs. Too many hatchlings crowd the nest, begging for bugs and weeds the parents bring. Irritable parents. After 3 days, they tousle the chicks. The weaker ones starve. What kind of mother, I ask, knowing all too well. Coots cluck, screech, cackle, squawk. For now, they keep swimming in circles. That's one way to show you belong. A hard, featherless shield covers their foreheads, connects their eyes with a scarlet dot. If you have one idea, guard it. Only the merciless live. Which is more and more apropos to the world we're living in day by day. Here's a poem that just came out this week in the New Republic, and I haven't seen it in print, but I know it's out. And the dress in the poem is this dress. So I couldn't resist showing you my dress, which is an old Indian print dress I bought in Cambridge about 30 years ago or more, which is part of the theme of the poem. Aging. And pobiz, I guess you could call it. The title of the poem is Author Photo. Author Photo. And you have long since outlived the scene where he buried his Swiss Army knife in the planting box outside the courthouse to avoid setting off alarms, as if you two hadn't already created alarms enough, hadn't sufficiently frightened and injured each other, which is why you found yourselves in a courtroom. And that was so many years ago. You can now observe those figures dispassionately, or even with pity. They are characters in a novel you're tempted to cast aside. The story is so worn, the people callow and self-absorbed. You aren't inclined at first to forgive them for being as young, as ignorant as you were then. Place the woman instead on a ledge of schist in a city park. Etch wrinkles around her eyes, her mouth. The rock is 500 million years old, and she, past 70, wears an old purple Indian cotton dress, a little frayed, which almost rhymes with a fractured schist. A glacier melting has left her there. She has survived her own violence. She may even begin to tell a story. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here in this really enchanted and generous space. I don't know if anybody wants to ask a question or make a comment or something, but if you do, this time to do it, and not that you're obliged. Anyway, here we are. Okay, well, let me just say thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you to the Grolier. Thank you, James. Thank you, George, for this wonderful gathering.
Thank you, dear Rosanna. Let's give her another round of applause for a wonderful reading this evening. Let's give George a round of applause. Thank you so much, George. And thanks to all of you. If everyone will please put their chairs up against one of the walls, I'd be very grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, I mean, to read.
All right,